What an unbelievable privilege to
I
have
took,
one of my superheroes tonight on Let's Dive Straight In. Lee McGregor, you're the reason that I still surf today. You're the reason that I joined Surf Lifesaving, and you're the reason that I still believe that I can do pretty fast times. Not that I'm doing them in swimming, but speaking to you the other day, I realized that I need to pull my finger and get going. But I want to go back. I know you don't like going back into history. You said you're as good as your last race, which I want to find out what was your last race. I want to go back. Where did it start for Lee, the swimmer?
Gee, was now you're really going back. Yeah, I was in the school gala. My dad was all excited that I was going to swim in the gala, and I said I was 8 years old. Got there and I was in the B race, and I couldn't believe it that I was in the B race. And my dad was very upset. Got in the car and he was moaning at me, "How come you didn't make the A race?" So I said, "I don't know." So he said, "We're going to go and train." So that's how it started. He then took me to the pool and he started teaching me how to swim. Not that he knew how to even play golf, but he managed to get me to go a bit faster, and that's how it all started off.
Okay, so your first coach was actually your dad.
Yeah, he was, if you want to call it a coach. A coach, I believe a coach has credibility, and if you don't have credibility, you're not a coach. So he had no credibility, but he was a great inspirational father to say, "Come on, let's go and get you to get that A final." And that's basically how it started. And then when I made the A final, I got beaten, and the guy that beat me, when he was finishing the race, his little girlfriend, about 9 years old, ran up to him and gave him a big hug. And I said, "I want to have a girlfriend like that." And my dad said, "Well, then you better learn how to win." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go win." So the original concept was, go out there. If you want to get a decent girlfriend, you better start winning some races. That's how it started.
That's a pretty good motivating factor. You obviously, I think you were 15 years old. I read through Kobus Skipper's website, so I got a bit of details from Kobus's website. I think your first nationals, you were 15 years old. I mean, that's pretty young for a men's swimmer to make it to nationals. Can you remember what strokes you qualified for and how that first nationals went?
Tace, you got to be kidding. I can't even remember back that far, let alone what I was doing when I was 15. It was the only goal that I had at 15 was when I was South African under 10 age group champion for butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke. I was under 12 champion. I was under 14. Okay. And the nightmare for me was when I was about 12, 13 years old. My dad took me on Friday nights to the local league galas, and in those galas he entered me for the 400 freestyle. And the most embarrassing thing that you could ever have as a young kid when you're on an ego trip and you think you're getting good is to go and race men. And I had to race men every Friday night, and the embarrassing part was a 50-meter pool, 25 meters, and every time when they finished and they were the guys that were winning, they would be touching the wall, and I still had another two lengths to go, and they would all stand around the pool waiting for me. By the time I used to finish, I was crying my head off, and I'd go home all crying my head off, and that's how it went on for probably 2 years. And my dad kept saying, "One day you will get faster, and one day you'll grow up, and one day you'll be a champion, and just hang in there." And I think it was the wrong way of doing it, because to this day I would hate to see a little 14-year-old kid going to go along in a K1 canoe try and compete against Olympic champions. But that was his concept was you got to learn how to get beaten to learn how to win. So it's a different options, but that I went through the heartache of that and a lot of crying, I can tell you, and sitting in the back of the car sobbing, my dad saying, "You little drip," and blah blah blah.
Well, obviously, you kept on swimming. Who was your first coach with credibility, if you want to call it that? And were you based in Natal when you made your first nationals?
No, I was in Johannesburg, and we left Cape Town, left Johannesburg, and was with. I went to the swimming pool at Zoo Lake when I was 10 years old or something like that, and my dad went to a coach. Now you're asking lots of questions. Anyway, there was a guy there called Andre van der Swan, and he was a Dutch coach. Okay. And he was looking at me and he said, my dad went up to the other guy. I just wish I could remember his name. And he went to my dad, and this guy, the coach said, let me see your son swim. And I swam a little bit like that. And this guy said to me and to my dad, your kid will never be a swimmer. He's not coordinated. He'll never be a swimmer. You've got to give up and don't even waste my time. I can't think of his name. Anyway, I still remember going up to him afterwards when I broke a few South African records. Every time I broke a record, I went up to him and I said, weren't you that I could never make it? And Andre van der Swan came up and he said to me, I'll coach your kid. And I said, all right. And that was how it started. And he was a perfectionist in style and on working on technique and all. And that is the basis of everything in sport, is first get the technique and then get the training. And he worked more on technique than anything else. So it was the determination came through later, because you're with the correct style, everything just falls into place straight away. Absolutely. And I got the background with the style right in the beginning, and that's what hurts me so much today, to see so many kids going up and down swimming pools or up and down canoeing or in a surf ski, and they don't have the technique, but they're training their backsides off, and literally 25% of everything is in that technique, and if you don't have it, you're just wasting your time. So absolutely, I learned the right way. So I was very lucky in the way of meeting a guy like Andre van Swan.
I think you were part of that golden era of South African swimming where, I don't know, I've asked the question to many of the swimmers I've interviewed, why the backstroke was such a strong, I mean, Karen Meyer, you swam with Karen Meyer, and we'll touch on that a bit later, but there were a lot of very good Anne Fairley and then Brian Stewart and these guys, they were all swimming very good backstrokers. And I asked the question, why? And they said, first of all, good coaching, and then we had good technique. So you're spot on for what you're saying now, that if you can build good training onto a good technique, you will be a world beater. But with poor technique, you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. And I mean, backstroke was your strength as well.
No, not really. In the beginning, it was just a medley. So everything was the butterfly backstroke. I was concentrating more on the idea was, what's the best swimmer? Is that you go to swimming championships and you got, I don't know how many, 20 events, 100 free, 200 free, blah, blah, blah. But the question would be, who at the end of the day sort of claims to see that he's the best all-round swimmer in the competition? And I would still say today it's the medley swimmer, or in life-saving, it's the Ironman. So it's today triathlon and everything else that goes with it. So it was more, you've got to get good in all four strokes if you think you're good. And I think, and today, I would actually turn that around and say that's wrong, because today with the way that it is, you need to specialize. And if you are going to specialize and you're going to specialize properly, then stick to the fly, win fly, become a gold medalist, and that's it. And everything, your muscle memory, everything is geared just for that butterfly. So you're not mixing different muscles up and not mixing different styles up. So that's to me the way I look at life today, or look at sport today, or canoeing today, or surf ski paddling today, or whatever.
Speaking of that, so you went to nationals in as a 15, 16-year-old, and you kept on swimming, and then you won multiple. I mean, I've got a list here. If I'm going to read through the list, you're going to miss your training tomorrow. I mean, you won a lot of things, but you competed against some incredible swimmers. Who do you see as your biggest sort of opponent swimming wise that you had to compete against? Was there someone you feared or someone you sort of admired from your era?
There's never, I mean, I can honestly say, and I'm still teaching the same thing today, if you want to talk coaching, I've never ever looked at anybody and said, that's the man I want to beat. That was in swimming, that was the wonderful part of swimming, is that you don't have a canoe where you've got different types of canoes, different paddles and everything else, different conditions. A swimming pool is a swimming pool. It's a Speedo swim costume, and that's it. When you touch the wall, that's your time. Crawl over the lane, you give the guy a hug and you say, well done, he beat you. But it wasn't to me to beat anybody. There was a world record. There was nothing else. There was only a world record. And my world record that I wanted, that I had to beat, was originally was a 2:10 for the 200 IM, and it went down to 2:09.2. I wouldn't have the faintest idea who the hell held that world record, because it was important. That there was a record there, and I had to break that record, and there was nothing else. If I didn't break that record, it was the minute you start getting involved with who's next to you or who you're going to race against or anything like that, is you're wasting your time. There's a time. and that's what you're going for. And that's actually, you can cut this out later if you want to, but I was pretty shocked to watch the 2012 Olympics and then the 200 meters butterfly, and I realized that our fantastic Chad Leclerc was going out in the first 50, and he was 1 second slower than the world record. The world record pace, he was nearly a second off the pace on the first 50. Now, you're not racing the world record, you're now racing the person next to you. And that became what Graham Hill was racing. He was actually racing the guy next to him. And that to me was crazy. And that's why they didn't break the world record. And that's why, to me, he should have killed that race. And he should have won it by 2 seconds and broken the world record, because they were a long way off the world record. But there again, it's my philosophy of, don't race anybody, race the time. And if you're in a swimming pool, you only race the time.
That's an incredible way of looking at it. And it obviously showed up in all the sports that you did. I'll touch on your canoeing and your surf ski later. There were a couple of people that you were desperate to beat because you were never allowed to compete against them. I want to go back quickly on one of our earlier phone calls. You mentioned, being selected for the Olympic Games and going to the airport and then having to turn around. Just touch on that, and how come you are still playing sport when you were so bitterly disappointed?
I've been listening to guys like Simon and unfortunately right now Jeff, and looking back and thinking, what were their careers like? And they had great careers, and they were still in the mix of. Jeff still swam internationally, and he got over to England and all that, and he went to America and swam in the nationals. I was scratching in the last bit there to hang in there, and I just made the last tour, 1969, to Europe as a swimmer, and then after that went across to the States and swam with Mark Spitz there for a couple of days, and Tyron Tozer was there, and we spent about a month over there with with the professor, what's his name,
Doc Councilman.
Doc Councilman, yeah. And he became like a father to me. But the question was that it wasn't the fact that I could go to the Olympic Games or couldn't go to the Olympic Games. I knew we weren't going to go to the Olympic Games. We all knew that wasn't going to happen. But the question was that I didn't have a chance to compete internationally. And I wanted to go over there and prove that if I got in that right mode, that these guys could, with that atmosphere and the lanes. And we were swimming with garden hose pipes across there. So when we came off the wall, we had big waves, etc. And just to have that amazing feeling what it would be like in front of a crowd of maybe 5,000 or 10,000 people. And that was what I craved. I wanted that chance, that one chance to go and get on that world stage and just prove to myself, not to anybody else, that myself, that the amount, those hundreds and hundreds of hours that I put to it, that it justified the reason. So when we didn't go, it was heartbreaking. But Corin and I swam for about 3 years after we went, after 1969, we came back. And it was 3 years, and every year we ended up just the two of us training with Lily Boy down here, and then it got cold and the winter came, and then we would go along and train in a little 12-meter swimming pool in the middle of the hotel, blah, 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 and went on and on. And we went to the airport the first time, going to the airport to go and fly to the European Swimming Championships. We were so excited because we were told that we could do it. And just about at the airport, we got the radio came up to say that the Springbok swimming team there at that stage, who consisted of only two of us that had qualified, Cora and myself, just been told they'd been banned. And we turned the car around, went back, and we said, okay, we're not going to do it again. And then, no kidding, about 3 months later, Cora said, come on, we do it again. And let's just give one more chance. So surely we'll get one more chance to go. And I said, okay. So we trained again for another year. And no kidding, I know it sounds like a bloody war story, but we were again in the car going to the airport, and we said, please don't let it happen again. And no kidding, it came through that as we pulled into the car park again, they said the team to go has been cancelled again. And Corin started crying. And I just sat in the back of the car with her, and my dad pulled the car over and said, guys, you've spent 3 years now since you've toured last, and of your life just training, waiting for this opportunity. It's never going to happen. Let it go. And let it go. And that's what we did. It was over, and Corin, I went long and went to the boot of the car, opened the suitcase up and took my Speedo out, and I went back in the car, and we were driving away, and I threw the Speedo out the window. I said, hey, that's the end of my swimming. And I never saw Corin again. I mean, that was the end of our. She went back to wherever, Kimberley, Bloemfontein, and studied, and I then said, okay, that was the end of me. So that was the end of our thing. It was, we just wanted that one chance to go and prove it, and we never got it. And then yeah, so it was sad, but I mean, that's nothing compared to what was going on in the real world. Yeah. But the main thing, the exciting part was, I did get a chance to go and swim there with Councilman. He did change my life and my thinking of what coaching's about, training is about. I met Mark Spitz, and he reminded me very much of Oscar with the attitude. He's got an amazing attitude at that stage, and it was never I wanted to beat Mark Spitz. I just didn't. I just wanted to go that under that 210, that 200 IM, and I broke the world record.
Did you get there?
No, this is the way that coaching is done. And Councilman went along, and he called me up the one day. He said, you know that tomorrow you're going to break the world record. And I said, how am I going to do that? He said, we're going to swim. You're going to have 10 seconds rest on each 50. So you're going to, on the butterfly. I had I can't think of names, but it was the world record holder for the 100 fly, and I had the world record holder for the 100 for the 50 back. And cut a long story short, I swam the 50, stopped on the wall, took 10 seconds, swam back. He'd minus the 30 seconds off for the 200 IM, and I went at 2:06 or something for the. And he said, "You will break the world record." And I said, "I knew it." And the next day, I was now doing backstroke starts, and I tore my muscle in the side of my shoulder, and that was the end of me at the American Swimming Championships. And that was the last international one I had. So it was heartbreaking, but it was. That's the way it goes. And you just got to look at it and say, well, was it an experience? Yeah, it was incredible. But the biggest excitement for me in America was I chose my wife there. I mean, now you can cut this lot out, but everybody knows the same story. So even Shirley and I have told the same thing. It's not nothing embarrassing. It's just where we were. We were two young people that were kind of weird, I guess. It was the era of the Woodstock and the hippies. And she was a hippie, so I was.
That's the 60s for you, eh? 60s, 70s. Listen, Lee, going back to your swimming. So, did you quit after that disappointment of not going to the team? Because you made a sort of a comeback when you were in your early 30s, and that's when I met you, when you came to swim once or twice at the University of Stellenbosch. What in between that? What did you do? Was that when your sailing started taking shape?
Yeah, I mean, I've been sailing since I was 18. That I was when I came back from America, and then we had a 3 months gap. My dad bought a yacht at that stage, and he bought an old trimaran, and he said he wanted to sail around the world. And it's a little bit of a story, because I was at school then in Johannesburg, and I was only in standard 8, and he came up and said, look, I've decided to buy the yacht and sail around the world, and I'd like you to come with. And I said, but do you have any income on it? He said, no. He said, we'll work our way as waiters and everything else like that. And I said, but what about that we had 2 horses and dogs? And he said, no, you've got to get rid of all of that. And I said, okay, fine. And how long do I take before I can give you an answer? So he said, well, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3, 2. I said, okay, we'll go. And a month later, I was out of school, standard 8, finished my standard 8, finished swimming at nationals, and we moved to Durban onto the yacht, and there was it. And then about 3 or 4 months after that, we've been sailing a couple of times until there was one of the biggest storms in Durban's ever had, and a tanker called the World Glory, a super tanker, actually broke the whole bow off. It was just the whole bow was gone in this terrible storm. And what happened? We went out there. My dad phoned the port captain and said he wants to go out sailing, and he wanted to check the size of the storm to see what a storm is all about. I mean, that's not exactly when you want to go into a hurricane to check a hurricane, but so he got special permission because the harbor was closed, went out, and my mom and dad were seasick as hell, and they said, no, they don't want to do this anymore. And I was in awe with these huge big waves, and I've got pictures of this oil tanker coming into the harbor with the whole nose broken off and all. And I went to my dad about a month after that, and I said, if I qualify as a captain, will I be able to take this boat and go sailing? And he said, you're 18 years old. You won't get past. Anyway, it's the port captain and blah, blah, blah. A long story. And he failed me 3 times. And I eventually got my skipper's license. And we decided, I said, I'm going sailing. And we took the yacht, myself, and the two Kleber brothers. We were all 18. We were all in the Natal swimming team. And there was 5 of us, and my old priest that used to be at the school in Johannesburg, and one girl, and 3 of us. And we said, okay, let's go. None of us knew anything about night sailing or sailing. None of us knew anything about navigation. None of us knew anything about a damn thing. We had one chart that was from Cape Town to the Nairobi, and that was it. It was an aeronautical chart, so we didn't have anything. We had no idea what depths or anything. And 5 of us were on this yacht in the biggest storm you've ever seen in your life, and we went headed out to sea. And that was 6 months later. We couldn't get back because that was another story. But then I did back. Eventually, we got the boat back, and we were like, I mean, I can write a book of. In fact, I am writing short stories about that trip. And then it was the army. So it was straight into the army, and from this crazy world of hurricanes and everything out there in the middle of the islands, 18 years old, with, I mean, I can shark attacks and you name everything that happens. And I was stuck in the blooming army, and then the army caught, and it was like, I walked into the army, and the guy called me out of there were 800, and he said, "Who's McGregor?" And I said, "I'm McGregor." He said, "Well, come here." And I walked into this room, and he said, "I heard you're a Springbok swimmer." I said, "No, double Springbok, surf, lifesaving, and swimming." And I thought, well, big deal. Yeah. And this guy said, "Well, I just want to let you know that you are nothing." He said, "And when you're in my army, you are nothing." And his name was Sergeant Major Bontes, and I'll never forget it. And Bontes, he hated me. And I walked out of there, and I said, "Oh." And about a week later, I said, I couldn't do this anymore. And they were running across the field, a whole lot of us, and I just fell down. They took me to the hospital, and they said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I think it's ligaments in my knee." Cut a long story short, the ligaments in my knee, there were no ligaments, but I was in the hospital, so that was great. And they said, well, we x-rayed, and they couldn't work out what was wrong, but I knew a lot of breaststroke swimmers had knee problems, so I just made that excuse. So the doctor said, well, we'll put you on light duty. So I spent 3 weeks in the army sitting down the side while everybody marched up and down. And you can imagine what the sergeant major did. He hated like that. Yeah. Anyway, and then, of course, I got a call to say, hey, you know what, there's the Lady Western Province Swimming Championships at Longstreet Swimming Bath indoor, and they want me to swim. I said, well, that'll be great. So this captain came along and said, we want you to swim, but you're on light duty. Can you still do a tumble turn without using that leg? I said, yeah, no problem at all. Just get me out of here. So we were off to Longstreet, and I turned a straight leg without bending my leg at all, my left leg, and managed to kick off the wall. And this night was the Western Province Swimming Championships, the headline on the Monday morning. McGregor breaks, I think, 6 Western Province indoor swimming records. Headlines the back of the Cape Argus. And I thought, oh, shit. And the next morning at the camp, I was sitting there quietly humbling in the corner there because I was on light duty. I wasn't even allowed to march, let alone walk. Exactly. And the sergeant major walked up. He said, I heard you swim. And he said, come with me. And we went from there in his car to the Longstreet swimming pool. And he put me in, he said, now show me how you swim and how you can turn, but you can't march. And I turned with a straight leg beautifully out there, and he drove me all the way back again. He said, there was not even a sound. But anyway, that's how my army career started in there. And it got pretty hectic. And then, but you know what I ended up? I mean, that was when I got back there, he said, I've got a job for you. And my job was then to clean the toilets. So I had 52 toilets. And they were all only a meter high, the little doors. So everybody sits in rows. I don't know if you went to the army. Yeah. And we got 25 on the one side, 25 on the other side, and everybody looks at each other. Yeah. Well, that was it. My job was to clean the toilets. So everybody came in there. And then I would say to the guys, okay, just make sure you clean it up properly. And then it was ridiculous. Yeah. But it was better than marching up and down and being told what to do. So I hated people telling me what to do. So that's what I did for another couple of months until eventually I ended up running the dispensary, because the guy that ran the lady chemist there, he got caught for drugs, and they didn't know anybody else. They said, oh, how's your IQ? And I did an IQ, and they said, oh, you're running the dispensary. So then I started running the whole dispensary for the army. So it was great. Anyway.
I did my 2 years national service as well. I mean, that's why I started running, because swimming wasn't big in the army. So I had to start running, and did a couple of, but
where were you?
I did Youngsfield. Like, my swimming got me into Youngsfield, but it didn't. Once I got in, it didn't help much. But we started a surf life-saving team in the army, so we went to nationals and Natal. So no, it was good.
It was at Youngsfield.
Youngsfield, we had a national army side, and we had some of the Springbok rugby players. Keith Andrews was in the. He couldn't even swim, but he's on the front page of the Argus in a swimming belt. So anything to get out of marching.
You remember that? You remember the toilets there? I was in charge of one of the bungalows with that whole toilet roll. That was my job. I
was
spent
there for 2
a
years.
month there every day.
I did the
I used to
last.
sit in the end toilet. Yeah.
I did the last 2 years national intake. I did. But anyway, back to surf lifesaving, Lee. You got me into surf lifesaving, which I still till today think is one of the greatest sports that was ever invented, because it's the knowledge of the ocean. It's there's so many things that play a part. Obviously, you have to be fit as well to go around the swimming cans or the surf ski cans to be able to catch that wave. Tell me about your surf lifesaving. I think you competed, obviously Springbok colors, but you competed against the Aussies and some other international teams.
I was captain of the swimming team for South African swimming team, and when I was 18, I think I was the youngest Springbok captain as far as I know today in any sport. And then we finished swimming in Rhodesia, and I came back, and they said that there's going to be a Springbok swimming team, that's a Springbok team to compete against in the surf lifesaving, to compete against Australia, and they wanted me to swim. And I was the junior swimmer then, and Jeff Grills was one of the senior swimmers. Jeff and Ricky Culpepper, and that's when I sort of got to know Jeff a little bit better. And that was held at North in Durban, so I swam that way. That was a bit of an eye opener for me, because it's not the same as what you swim today. Is that in that day, as the swimmer, you had to be protected. So as me being the fastest swimmer in the thing, I was actually faster than Jeff at that stage. Not that he could, he can't tell me about it now because he's not here. But I mean, the question was, I just had to go crazy at the start of the swim, but everybody had to swim. So we had the whole Australian team swimming and the South African team. And then what happens? The whole idea was to let the swimmer go, and everybody else had to block around him, because the Australians would just come over and swim right over you and punch you in the face and knock you out and everything else. So it was this whole thing of somebody had to swim, and then either side of everybody else, there was just these protecting guys that were making sure that you didn't get killed. So it was hectic in those days, because in the ski and all, you could still see what was happening, but in the swimming, there was just out, all the boaty boys were out there just to make sure that the swimmer never got to the can. So I swam really fast.
I experienced a little bit of that when you got us involved in myself and Noel Droomer and Bevan Johnson, the boys, when we joined Strand Surf Lifesaving Club. The problem there was we didn't have fast enough guys to stay with us to protect us. So when we went up to nationals, we had Oscar and Herman Chulupski and all the big boys, swimming out wide and protecting Graham Mules and the Julian Taylors and the boys. It's difficult to compete against those guys when you have no protection. It's a bit like playing American football with no defensive line to help you. But unbelievable
I remember Ricky Culpepper got hit the one there when he was there, and he got smashed to pieces. I mean, he came out blood all over his face and everything else. But I was in the front. I always got to the front, so it was great. Thank goodness I didn't have to do it every single day. But it also teaches you how to, if you think you're going to get smashed, I tell you something, you go damn fast when their gun goes off, you go over. Especially when you've got two bloody 100-kilogram boys next to you trying to bloody pull your hair out. But anyway, so that was the start of surf lifesaving, and then again it was just then. It was Ironman. That was all, because that Ironman was more of, again, that medley, best all-rounder, that type of thing. So I got pretty involved with that.
I still remember very clearly how you helped us in Strand, taught us how to go under the waters, grab the sand, kick off, and then you started paddling. Before you joined Strand Surf Lifesaving Club, I mean, you were then participating in the Ironman and focusing on the Ironman, but you were new to rowing and paddling when you joined. That was my sort of perception. I don't know what age did you start rowing? Was it around the time you joined Strand Surf Lifesaving?
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and then I got into. I went to the Stellenbosch Dam where they train there, and the
still train there today.
I took my surf. Yeah, I've got all Evan and all the boys there, and I took the dam. They did the dice, and in the first lap I was killing everybody in the front in my ski, and the second lap I was obviously tense, and the next lap I actually gave up because I was so far behind, and all the boys for the Berg River were training in those days. So, it was a war in water. And then Maynard Marais and all those guys are there. And then, like nobody spoke English, and I was the only guy there. And I used to say, "Well, how far?" And they wouldn't reply. And I said, "What's here? What's here?" And then they'd walk off. So I was putting the deep end on that. And then I said, "Well, anyway, I'm going to beat these guys is to get a canoe." So I got a K1 and got my canoe, and I was the fastest racing boat from Durban had arrived. Well, I ended up for, I think, about a week. I couldn't even sit in the thing. Absolutely useless. I had no idea of what it was all about. And then eventually, after about a month, I think I had exactly a month, and I entered the Berg River Marathon. Oh, hell, anyway, but that's another story, because at Berg River Marathon, I was coming, I think, in the top 6 when we got to the last day. And then I collapsed because I didn't have any water, no juice, and no everything else, no anything. And I ended up I ended up in hospital that night. They took me straight at the finish, and they put me in hospital on the trip. And that was the start of my K1 what do you want to call it? My K1 river knowledge.
Career.
I had absolutely no idea. Yeah.
But
I mean, I was going so fast on the line, I thought it was brilliant until the guy came past me, and it was Oscar's dad. He still looked at me and he said, "Hey, you useless." And I said, "Yeah, that's me, boy." But I was at the Fredenberg Hospital. I can't remember that. But I spent the night in the hospital because my blood sugar level was so low, it was ridiculous. I had no idea what was there. But I hung in there.
You obviously hung in there because you beat the best in the world later in surf ski, and in the freshwater. What is the race called that you, at the age of 43, you went and you beat Greg Barton and the boys in America? The freshwater, that vodka sponsored race.
Yeah, Jace, you got to talk about. That was the Finlandia, and that was from Chicago to New York. Yeah, that was an invite thing. There were, I think, 25 guys in the world invited. That Oscar Herman invited, myself and all, and the top New Zealanders, the top Australians, all these guys, all the Olympic guys, 10,000 meter world champions and all that. And then, I got clever on that race because I thought I will. I retired from paddling because Hank was at that stage he was trying to win everything, and he was 17 years old. So my whole idea was, back off. And the idea of we got another yacht. I mean, I've had 13 or 14 yachts now. Was to sail across the Atlantic, take him to America, and get him into university there to help him with his paddling. So we sailed across there, and then while we were sailing, we were on the ski having fun and all the rest of it. But that's when he actually, as a 17-year-old, literally paddled across the Atlantic. And when we got to the other side, it was, hey, there's this guy, Greg Barton, and all that had just won that race last year. And they said, did not want to enter. And Hank said to me, hey, Dad, you got to go and do that race. You got to beat that guy. You always said you wanted to race the best. You've been in apartheid and all the rest of it. Come on, go and race the best in the world. And I said, yeah, why not? Why not? And then I've got 3 months to train. So I trained for 3 months. And that's when I said, well, what do I need? I'm going to have to go back and do the mileage. And this race is 1,000 miles. It's 5 hours a day, every day for 30 days. The organizer of the race is the same organizer that was part of the Tour de France. So it's based on the same principles as the Tour de France. And I started training my backside off. But what I worked out, which is what I've done all my life, was make sure that your food intake is critical. So you got to make sure that you eat properly. Otherwise, you're gonna, if you're racing every single day for 5 hours, like on the Tour de France, you got to have the proper intake. Yeah. So I worked out the best intake I could have was McDonald's. So I started eating McDonald's morning, noon, and night 6 weeks before the race. So my system would get used to it. So then I thought the next best way was to go and do the race backwards. So then I went from New York, and I paddled from New York 1,000 miles back to Chicago. And by the time the race started, I knew exactly where everything was. 15 Ks before each. I knew where the markers were. I wrote them down. I could see it. So I paddled the whole race backwards. So I was ready for it. When I arrived in Chicago after paddling there, the guy, I saw Greg Barton, and this big hero, because Greg Barton at that stage was the world champion, Olympic champion, and he was 3 times he'd won the world 10,000 meter championship. Yeah. And he'd always broken away by himself. He never ever paddled with anybody. He was good enough to actually drop the best in the world and paddle away from them around on a 1,000 meter course in front of everybody. So this was the hero of Hank. This was Hank's hero. This was the guy. If I said, if you can do that, you're good. Now I was going to go race this guy. So I walked up to him. I said, hey, it's an honor to race you. I've been watching you all my life, and you're really quite something. But I was 42 years old. and he was like 28 or something. And he just looked at me. And I mean, he might even listen to this one day. I mean, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, you arrogant bloody idiot. You hear somebody giving you some credit, and you can't even say thank you. I thought, yeah, I'm going to beat the hell out of this guy. And anyway, the next day the race started, and we were just the two of us neck and neck, and we paddled after 10 kilometers. He screamed at me and swore and said, "Are you effing this?" Because he couldn't stay on the pace. And I then paddled away, and I won that race I raced him for 30 days in a row. And I won that race by, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes or whatever. I just, after 10 days, I was so far ahead, I just had to hang in there. And he tried everything.
Beautiful.
In the bushes. So that was it, yeah. And then I phoned Hank from that night, the first night, and I said, I got Bart. And he said, "What do you mean you got Bart?" And I said, "Yeah, I got him by about 5 minutes." He said, "You didn't?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Now it's up to you. I beat this guy. I've still got another 29 days. No problem. I'm going to beat him. But now it's up to you to think about it, because you're going to have to go to the World Junior Championships, and you go and win the World Juniors. Because I'm going to be the fastest bloody long distance paddler in the world. You make sure you're the fastest bloody junior in the world." And he said, "Your deal is on." That's how we started getting that thing together. Yeah. But that's another story. So that was my paddling on the long. That was my. There was an article on the back of Time magazine, on the back page of Time magazine International, and it said the man that waited so long for his next year, the man that waited, something about the man that waited so long, and it came right. It'd been 20 years of isolation, we'd never raced, and here I was racing the best in the world. And maybe it wasn't their game. I mean, to go and race for 1,000 miles is not exactly racing 1,000 meters, but it was still it was great for me. It was wonderful for me to show my son that his dad was worth listening to, because there's the biggest problem we have with parents today is that they don't want to listen to their kids don't want to listen to their parents, because they don't have any respect or credibility. So when it came to the paddling, hey, I just got credibility, so I can walk tall in front of my son. So it was good. And then the coaching after that, became pretty intense.
Yeah, I speak to Greg Carswell quite a lot, because Greg loves these videos that I'm doing as well. So when I said I'm talking to Lee tonight, he sent me the link to that Making of a Legend, and I'll advise people. I'll drop the link below so people can go and watch it on YouTube. But it's a stunning story. But what stood out for me in that whole story is the love and respect that both yourself and Hank have for each other. I mean, I could see, for me, it's something worth watching, that you've earned the credibility and the respect, but you also respect you. I think towards the end, you say that Hank's your hero. So, and I honestly believe you're saying that not just for the camera. I can honestly see that you don't do things for cameras. You do it because it's true. And I think, part of this is, having the credibility of doing it yourself, but then seeing your son and knowing the hours that goes into becoming a world champion, because no world champion is born a world champion. You got to go out and earn it. And Hanks has earned it, and you've been there all along with him, working with him, and not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk.
Yeah, he actually just phoned me about an hour ago, and he said, I've just made the national surf ski team to compete in the world champs in Lanzarote in July. There's 5 of us being chosen. He won the race because he just won the South African surf ski last week, 3 days ago, and he won the double ski. So he's now. You can congratulate him. I've got coach. Yeah, no, I'm not his coach in the sea. He's jumped a whole different league on what I'm capable of doing in the sea. But the big thing was that his son, little Torsten, my grandson, he actually swam in his first school gala yesterday, and he came 3rd pick to the Durham. And he's 6 years old, so he won under 150 kids in the school or something. And I said to Hank, well, okay, is he excited about coming 3rd? He said, no, he's over the moon. He said, and I said, and you? He said, no, I'm thrilled for him. He said he must have fun. And I said, did you just like moan at him about the fact that he didn't win? So he says, no, hell no, Dad. I said, the difference of what you were brought up, Hank, was that when you were 6 years old, you went to that pool, and I went and said to you, listen, you go and kick their butts. You go and knock their bloody heads off. You first is first, and second is nothing, and third we never talk about. Now get up there and go and show them that you
can. I actually wrote that down because I heard it from you for the first time. First is first and second is nothing. I heard it from you, Lee McGregor.
That's it. Well, that's the thing. And I said, why didn't you tell him that? He said, Dad, I don't think you were right. And I said, no, you're probably right. Or maybe you should. He said, let him just grow up and have fun and enjoy himself. I said, yeah, fine. But isn't it going to be up to him? What happens if he's a bit upset that he came third? So he said, yeah. I said, well, then. So I phoned the little guy up and I said, hey, how are you feeling? He said, oh, I feel good. I said, so you got a medal? He said, I got a medal. I said, fantastic. And well, do you think you could go and beat that guy that came second? Yeah, I'm going to beat him. I said, how are you going to do that? He said, hey, Grandpa, I'm going to train. I said, oh, well, okay, good luck to you. You go and train. I said, thank you. I said, you're rather you than me, boy, because you go. Here's the next McGregor on the line that he's going to go first is first, second is second. So I'm going to get this little kid down at the pool now, and I'm going to train him because I'm going to make sure that he's got the best starts, the best turns, and everything else. And that's nothing to do with his dad, but I won't go along and say, go and beat the hell out of them because that's
listen, this is excellent news. I'm gonna follow little Thorsten. I actually follow Hank on Instagram, and I saw the picture of Thorsten with a medal around his neck. But
okay.
there's something I want to go back to. When I spoke to you in December, and I said I want to interview and I want to chat to you, and we got talking about age, and you, I think your philosophy is that age is just a number, and you said to me, and I want to repeat what you said to me. You said you honestly believe that you can beat your 400-meter SA record time. I think you said 4 minutes 16 if you worked at it. And that actually got me thinking, Lee, that it is, I think you're right. If you go back to the pool now and you train hard, you can probably do that. Where does that mind come from that you are nearly 70 years old now, but you still think that you are better than the Lee McGregor of 16, 17, 18 years old? It boggles my mind, but I think it's amazing.
No, I've got, what have I got? I turned November in 70, yeah. But kind of scary when I think of it 70, and it's like, wow, that's old. But why should you get slower? I was also told that everything's done on heart rates and minus this and minus that. And if you take your heart rate -6 and blah, blah, your maximum heart rate will be 140 at your age. And therefore mine, I think, is 120. It's all rubbish because you've got a heart and that heart is a muscle. And if you train the muscle, it maintains and gets bigger. I said, I'll guarantee you right now that if I had to go and run up 10 flights of stairs for that out and hold my breath and do 10 push-ups every flight and everything, by the time I get to the top, I'll be up in the 170, 180s. No question about it. So why, if my heart can get up to that, and then it's only training the muscles. And that's why if you said to me, go and swim in the pool, I'd say, sure, give me 2 months and give me a record. Give me a time. And if the world record, I think I saw it the other day that I still hold that South African record, was the longest standing South African record going. I'm told that everybody tried to break it, right near and all that, they haven't broken it. So it was I think it was 4:18 or something. But the question is, why not? What is there? Is it something that we can't do it? And that's what I get upset about by things like you're doing, in a way. Not that you're doing anything wrong. I think this is wonderful that you bring it up. I don't know who listens to this, because I don't think any young people want to listen to some old fart talking about what he used to do 40, 50 years ago. But I think a lot of maybe older people would like to listen to what you're saying and saying, okay, what makes this guy go? So the question is, what are we actually doing? We need to exercise an hour every day, 45 minutes to stay healthy, and then do it properly. And if you do it properly, if you decide that you're going to put some time and effort into it, and do it properly. Just do it properly. And Tom Noak said to me years ago when I became the Olympic coach, I said I didn't want to become Olympic canoeing coach for South Africa because I don't know anything about science. I'm only on the basis of what I've learned over the years, and I've got my theories, and I think they've worked and I don't really want to pass them on. So when I heard Simon saying that all coaches just sit down and share what they've learned, I think it's crazy. I've learned so much, and that's my what do you want to call it? My gift to other people that want to train with me. to learn from me because I want to pass it on, but I don't want to pass it on to the whole world and Tom, Dick, and Harry. So yes, when you go and do what you're doing and pass it on, but I've got my ideas. And when Tim Noakes, when I took that job as the Olympic coach, the SASCOC said whatever it cost, they would go along and they would foot the bill for me to go and spend the 4 years with the Sports Science and Cape Town Institute. And it was amazing because what they did in the Sports Science Institute with Tim Noakes, he didn't know anything about paddling and what it would do and how much it's taken out. So we did a lot of science, and we had Hank and all were all scapegoats of trying to learn what would 10 1000s do for you, what would 200-meter sprints do for you, what would a P to East London paddle do for you, and what does it take out of the system. So I learned so much, and they spent nearly R1 million, I think. But anyway, Tim Noakes said to me a very interesting thing. He said, if you had to be in the desert and you were a hunter and you were a bushman and you woke up in the morning and you actually were tired, or that your shoulder was sore, or that you got a sore knee, what would he do? Because if he doesn't go out there and hunt, he's going to die. So you get up and you go. And the question is, if he does do it, at what age is he going to say, I'm too old to go and hunt now? And they keep hunting until they drop dead one day. Yeah. And therefore, why can't we just keep going until we drop dead one day? But I want to drop dead with the sun on my back, and I want to drop dead smiling, maybe in a ski, but I sure as hell don't want to drop dead in some bloody hospital somewhere, and I won't. I refuse. The day that I'm told I've got cancer, which is going to come, I'll be quite happy to say, hey, you know what? I've had a fantastic life. I don't regret anything. So I'm at the moment still. I've got a yacht lying. We've got a yacht lying in America, and we can't get to it. We haven't been able to get to it for 2 years. And that boat takes us to the Bahamas and the most beautiful water and the most incredible diving. And we can live off the land and the sea, and we don't have to have anything to do with the world. But that's another story. So me, I'm just saying, I've got an idea in life to say that if not now, then when? Because if I don't believe that. And I'll say it straight out. I said to Jeff a couple of years ago, Jeff, you're overweight and you're in bad shape, and it's ridiculous. You're one of the greatest athletes going. Why are you so unhealthy? Why can't you put 1 hour into watching what you eat? Maybe not that I watch what I eat, but I burn enough calories by training an hour every day, and then everything falls into place. So why is Graham Hill, hey, Graham, if you listen to this, you've had, 2 heart attacks, but you're in bad shape. And it's wrong, because these are great athletes, and they were world, role models to the world. And then you go and look at Simon even. Come on, guys, get out there and exercise and get yourself back in shape, because you're only as good as what you look like now and what you feel like. And these guys don't look good. And to me, it's sad. It really is. So anyway, now, don't you remember the question you were asking me? But that's where I am at the moment. So stay healthy, and why should we be able to go out there? And there's no damn reason at all that I can't go as fast as I went 30 or 40 years ago. No way. It's impossible. I'll guarantee you. And if you had to say to me, Lee, there's 100,000 Rand right now, I want you to break every single 50-year-old world record in the book. I'd say, okay, give me 3 months of my life. I'm not training canoeing anymore. I'm not going to do my exercise. I'm going to go and train, and I will break every 50-year-old, because I'm still the fastest 50-year-old in 45-year-old South African paddling in marathon at the moment. Still another month to go, and I've won 8 world marathon titles, 50-year-old and up. I still race 50-year-old and up, because I believe that I'm still good enough to race 50-year-old up. But the closest now is that Hank is now 43, so I've only got, I think, 6-7 years, and then he's going to be in the 50 to 55 age group, and then I'm retiring. So I don't want to race my son. No, he's better than me. But so in other words, now I sound like I'm like blasé, but I really and truly think that we've lost the plot as human beings to not actually stay healthy. And why not have a goal? Why don't we have goals? And if you're a swimmer, how fantastic it is to know that. What is the goal? Is the goal, oh, you know what, I'm going to go and go and win the local club masters, or am I going to go and win the South African masters? Am I not capable of winning the world masters and breaking the world record without having to go to wherever it is? And why not? Because why can't you put an hour into it every day? But the intensity of what you're doing, is it junk miles that you're doing, or is the intensity high enough to actually be good enough to do that? Because what is your goal? and where is life? Because my philosophy in life is the only thing that you have to do in this world. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to do anything, but you have to die. So the question is, what are you going to do before you die? And all these people getting COVID, all saying, "Oh, I got COVID, now I'm dying." So what? I don't care. Because why? Because I'm living, and I'm living the best I can, and therefore there's no reason not to be happy and when I'm dying. And I hope everybody celebrates when I die and say, "Hey, Lee had a fantastic life. Let's go and celebrate. Go and have a big party, bonfire on the beach, and celebrate the fact that he had a great life." But looking at where the top athletes are in canoeing, in cycling, and wherever I am, I just see them all the time. And I'm saying, you guys are just bloody lazy. That's all it is. It's sad. Anyway, shut up, Lee. All right, I'll shut up.
Last thing before I say goodbye, Greg, Carswell told me the story that you and Shirley looked after him when he was a student here at Stellenbosch, and you sort of took him under your wing and were really kind to him, and he's very glad that you guys took him under your wings. But he told me a story that you guys did some arm wrestling, and apparently he beat you the first time, and then you went and you built a machine and you practiced and you called him back and you kicked his backside a few months later. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I remember, Greg.
That sounds a bit like Lee McGregor.
Yeah, I didn't build a machine. I just started training. So it's not never going to happen again. And he caught me unawares. So he was beating all the Stellenbosch rugby team, and he had the Springbok team that he was actually pushing all the. He had such a long arm, and he was so powerful. But Greg was wonderful. We had some great times together. And
so when you're down
he trained for 3 months, basically killed it. Yeah.
When you're down in the Cape again, we got to get together. Greg says he's hosting, so I can't wait to see you again. It was fun seeing you in December, but you were a bit preoccupied with a Cape Point, and the beautiful thing for me that stood out was how Hank came down to the beach when you arrived at Fishhook, and he came to get your ski. And I've actually got video footage of the two of you chatting, and then he picked up the ski and you picked up the back, and the two walked off. And I really value and respect the relationship that you got going with your son. And to me,
Yes.
you were someone that inspired me to do things that I would never have done. I did open water swimming. I had a lot of fun in surf lifesaving. I started surfing because of you. I think Ellen met Tommy because of you, and they're still married today. So in the Lombard family, I'm very grateful for Lee McGregor and for what you've done in my life, and I hope long may it continue. It's awesome to see you, Lee. Thanks for your time, and I hope you're blessed with good health so you can keep on kicking butts and showing us what can be done. I really thank you for your time. It was absolute honor to speak to you.
It's a pleasure. You should be selling insurance. Very good, brilliant. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Lee, thanks. Let's stay in touch, buddy, and love to Hank, and good luck with all the stuff coming up. Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks very much. We'll take it from there. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a nice weekend.
Right.
Cheers, buddy.
Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
Ciao. Will do.
Cheers.